Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radhe, Jaya Radha Giridhari Radhe, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Nitai Chaitanya Chandra Nitai Gaura Chandra Gaura Hari. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Tatar Shata Shri Shrimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya, Asta Tatar Shata Shri Shrimad, His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki. Mahamacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Guru Ki. Prem Shikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Shiva Niramadhanam ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Himana Devi ki, Ganga Mai ki, Srimati Tulsi Marani ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, the most merciful Lordship Shishi Nitai Chaitanya Chandra Nitai Gaurachandra ki, Shishi Giriraj Govardhan ki, Shishi Radhagiri Hari ki, and the most beautiful Lordship Shishi Varanira Madhava ki. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Ranga. Tridandi. Ekadandi, but fundamentally Tridandi. I know. Saranga's, yeah. The boss. El Jefe.
Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. We are reading from Canto 1, titled Creation, Chapter 15, titled The Pandavas Retired Timely, and we are covering texts 22 to 24. So 22, 23 doesn't have a purport, and we'll chant 24 later, which has the purport. So I'll chant the 22 and 23. Rajam. Yes. Rajam Stvayanu Suhrudamna Suhrutpure Viprashapa Vimudhanam Nignatam Mushtibhir Mithaha Varunim Madiram Pitva Madon Maitita Chetasam Ajanantam Ivanyonyam Chatu Panchavasheshitaha. Translation by His Divine Grace Abhayacharana Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O King, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwaraka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all become intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice, and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. Text 24. Prayenaitad bhagavata Ishvarasya vicheshtitam Mito nignanti bhutani Bhavayanti cha yanmitaha. Prayenaitad bhagavata Ishvarasya vicheshtitam Mito nignanti bhutani Bhavayanti cha yanmita. प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मिता प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मिता प्रायेणैताद् भगवता ईश्वरस्य विचेष्टितम् मितो निघ्नन्ति भूतानि भावयन्ति च यन्मितः प्रायेण एतत्. It is almost by Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead, Ishwarasya, of the Lord, Vicheshtitam, by the will of Mitaha, one another, Nignanti, do kill, Bhutani, the living beings, Bhavayanti, as also protect, Cha also, Yat, of whom, Mitaha, one another. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another. Purport. According to anthropologists, there is nature's law of struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. But they do not know that behind the law of nature is the supreme direction of the supreme personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the law of nature is executed under the direction of the Lord. Whenever, therefore, there is peace in the world, it must be known that it is due to the good will of the Lord. And whenever there is upheaval in the world, it is also due to the supreme will of the Lord. Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. Whenever there is disobedience of the established rules enacted by the Lord, there is war between men and nations. The surest way to the path of peace, therefore, is dovetailing everything to the established rule of the Lord. The established rule is that whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we sacrifice, or whatever we give in charity must be done to the full satisfaction of the Lord. No one should do anything, eat anything, sacrifice anything, or give anything in charity against the will of the Lord. Discretion is the better part of the valor, and one must learn how to discriminate between actions which may be pleasing to the Lord and those which may not be pleasing to the Lord. An action is thus judged by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure. There is no room for personal whims. We must always be guided by the pleasure of the Lord. Such action is called yoga karmashu kaushalam, or actions performed which are linked with the Supreme Lord. That is the art of doing a thing perfectly. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Romapadaswaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachacha Deshatarini. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptaganchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. I would like to seek permission from His Holiness Sanmat Preshak Swami Maharaj to speak something for my purification. So, in this chapter, we have been reading about how Arjuna returned from Dwaraka, and he is describing, I guess in the last few verses, he has been describing the mood in terms of what Yudhishthir Maharaj was already feeling, and he expressed in the last chapter how there were things that were happening that were not ominous. So in this chapter, he has been explaining how he also observed how different things have taken place. And in this last text, 22 and 23, he is actually finally revealing what happened. So here he says that, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwaraka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all become intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice, and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. So he's finally breaking the news. And then he explains in this next text that factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. So he's describing how this Yadu dynasty was annihilated, and how they all lost their lives in the fratricidal war. And of course everybody knows the story, but so what was the reason for this mishap? What was the reasoning? Why did they? Yeah, oh, sorry. You have a microphone. Aniruddha was naughty. Aniruddha? Oh.
The sages were all in Dwarka, and then the boys started acting, what's the word, naughty?
Yeah.
There's maybe some other word for it. Isn't there some other word, more exact word? And so they addressed Aniruddha up as a girl, right?
Samba.
Oh, samba, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Samba was naughty. Okay, yeah.
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 So it is described in the 11th canto, I think, that basically they all the Yadus, they went for a picnic, I think, in Prabhas Kshetra, right? Or no, the actual what? No, they actually went to Prabhas Kshetra. Oh, okay. Then they were actually playing. All the kids were playing, and then and of course there were some sages having some ritual that they were performing, and even it is said that Narada was present also at that place. And then of course the kids, the Yadu kids, as they were in a playful mood, they dressed Samba as a girl, and then basically they put like a sari kind of thing, and they put some sort of cloth on his belly, and they went to the sages, and they basically asked the sages in a teasing way what kind of child is a boy or a girl who would take birth in this girl's womb. And so of course the sages knew what these kids were doing, and so they got disturbed. They got, actually it said that they got enraged, and then of course it's a small thing that kids were asking, but I guess it's again that comes to the Lord's will part. And so they got enraged, and then they basically said that there will an iron rod will take birth, come out of your womb. And so the kids were like, ha 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 ha, and they laughed. But when they opened the cloth, the belly, there was a protruding iron rod that was already coming out, a lump. And so then they basically said, what to do, and then they ran to Ugrasena, right? Yeah, they ran to Ugrasena, and so the Ugrasena said, no worries, I'm the king. So he basically had advised them to grind that iron lump into grain, basically kind of grains, and have it dropped in the Prabhas Kshetra, in the sea. And of course, when the ocean waves took this iron ore grain into the ocean, it actually immediately came brought back, and then all these iron ores were planted on the seashore, and they became eventually they became iron rods or sticks. And then when these boys, actually maybe the next time, when they come to the Prabhas Kshetra for a picnic or for a family outing, that's when they drink this putrefied rice, wine made of putrefied rice. Oh, that's sake? Sake. All right. Now you know what you need to get killed by fratricidal war. Serve a bunch of sake. Anyway, so they drank that, and then they finally, it says that they were so intoxicated with that wine, they fought among themselves, not even recognizing one another, and they killed each other. All but only 4 or 5 of them are dead or gone. So again here, there are in the text actually it mentions, right, viprashapa vimudhanam. So the reason why all this happened was viprashapa, because it was the Brahmin's curse. Vimudhanam, basically that because these folks were vimuda, basically they were not, they were being fooled, they were fools, right? Vimuda is fools, right? So the mudha, fools, right? Be fooled. So they were basically being fools, and and they played this trick on these brahmanas, and thereby they were cursed. Of course, is it really because of the curse of the brahmanas? Right? Of course, there are. It's not like in the case of Parikshit Maharaj. Also, we saw the Brahmana sage cursed, Brahmana boy cursed, and he actually had to leave his body. And Parikshit, right? No, the boy. So it's not actually. I mean, obviously, this the people of the Yadu dynasty, they were protected by the Supreme Lord, right? I mean, they were actually who were the members of the Yadu dynasty? What was their origin? They are the demigods. They came from the higher planetary systems. They actually, so it's not like these are not ordinary beings. They were actually personalities that actually had served the Lord in their positions previously, and so the Lord gave them mercy or the blessing to take birth in His own family and become His own family members. So these are not ordinary personalities, but at the same time, they were also. It is described, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in one of his commentaries, he says actually some of the members, not all of them, but some of the members of the Yadu family, Yadu dynasty, were of like a mundane vision. They were not seeing Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shatrajit, yeah? Yeah. So some of them became complacent, or some of them, what is it? Familiarity breeds contempt, right? So because they were part of the family of Yadu, part of Lord's family, they were not recognizing the Lord's supremacy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so they, so that's a no-no. So, right? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that mundane vision causes becoming inimical to Lord. So we have to be careful. That's the lesson that Bhaktisiddhanta is giving us, is that we have to be careful even with the personalities that we associate with, like Maharajas, our spiritual masters. Even though just because we have their association on a regular basis, or we are and they are talking to us in a friendly mood or whatever, we should not lose, or we should not develop that mundane vision that oh, he is just one of us kind of thing. We have to recognize that these personalities are have a higher role and higher consciousness. And so we have to be respectful. Otherwise, we will fall into the same trap as the Yadu dynasty, right? Lamp of fire. And also another point Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his commentary mentions is that they are misrepresenting Lord's will. I mean, to a certain extent, they basically they were having whimsical behavior that is opposite to the Lord's will, and because of their intimate association. Because how would you? I mean, these. Just think about it. This is still, I mean, not the start of the Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and people were still kind of at least they were respectful of the sages. So, what is the possibility that these personalities, these kids, would go to sages, especially like Narada Muni, and try to tease them? It's yeah, you're being impudent, because basically you're being whimsical in your behavior, which is opposite to the Lord's intended will. And so that's what is, and it is said that a just king will protect even his own enemy if the enemy is innocent. But if the own family member, like even his own son, he is mischievous, or he is doing whimsical behavior, he will punish him. Any example that comes to mind from Bhagavata? Who was the enemy that Krishna, the Lord, protected? Prahlad, right? Prahlad Maharaj. Huh? Yeah, born in the family of demons, but he was innocent. Right? The Lord identified. Yeah, Vibhishana. He was the brother of Ravana. But the Lord, even though when Vibhishana came to see Ramachandra, Sugriva and other folks said that no, you cannot allow this demoniac personality come in front of you. We will not accept it. Then Ramachandra asks opinion of Hanuman, and Hanuman says, being the more wisdom, he says that no, if he came to take shelter or surrender to you, you should at least listen him out. And so, and Ramachandra also says, yeah, even if a demon, even if Ravana comes now, I will give him my shelter. Even if Ravana comes. So what to speak of his brother, Vibhishana? Yeah. And so, and the same way, what is the opposite? Who did the Lord punish in his own family member? Huh? Shishupal. Yeah, I guess he's a cousin brother. But Lord punished his own Krishna. Lord Krishna actually killed his own son. Who was it? Bhaumasura, right? Yeah, it's Satyabhama's son, Bhumi Devi's son, to Vishnu, I guess, Narayana. Yeah. No, but that's when Satyabhama says when in the war that he is your own son, because Satyabhama is actually Bhumi Devi or Dharani, and so he's my son, but Krishna kind of, because he was being demoniac, he had to kill his own son. Right? So, so the Lord actually punishes who, even if his own, and in this case, he recognized that his own family members, some of them were behaving whimsically or inimically toward him, and he thought that it was not good for the greater good of the people of the world, so that he actually made this arrangement, right? And another thing, in Jiva Goswami's commentary, he says that Yadus lost their opulences to impress upon the temporary nature of the material world. Obviously, the Yadus were very powerful folks. They are demigods themselves, and they took birth in the dynasty of Lord Krishna. And so they could have, there were so many things that could have happened. Like, if they would have gone to Lord Krishna or Balaram, and he would have basically said, oh no, I will just go and pray to the sages or something, and they will take the curse back. Or, they could have so many options could have happened. But the Lord wanted to show that even his own family members can lose all their opulences, all their fame, all their belongings, just to show that it is the temporary nature of this material world. All these opulences, what they have accumulated, are temporary in this thing, and so they can be lost. That's Jiva Goswami explanation. And of course, Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai, Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaura Chanditai Chaitanya Chandra ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Of course, our acharyas also explain the curse of these brahmanas are the curse of the Gandhari, because this is also another reason, right? I mean, this is not only the curse of the brahmanas, but also the Gandhari also curses Lord Krishna at the end of the Kurukshetra war, when Lord Krishna goes to Gandhari to pay his respects and to kind of reduce her grief. Of course, Gandhari gets very agitated, and she basically curses Lord Krishna that you have not, actually her curse is, you could have stopped the annihilation of my family, but since you have not stopped it, your entire family also will be annihilated in the same way, in just a family war. And so that same basically, but of course our acharyas explain these are simply the external reasons. Just to teach us, we should never enrage Brahmanas or Vaishnavas. Right? In the case of the sages, what the boys did, they enraged the Brahmanas, the sages, the Vaishnavas, and the same thing with Gandhari. And so these are simply external reasons. And the second principle that is being discussed here in the next text 24 is factually, Shukadeva Goswami explains that factually this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. So it's nothing to do with all these other whatever the things are, that people can come up with. It's simply by the supreme will of the Lord. So where else this same topic comes? Who else explains that it is only by the will of the Lord? That just few chapters ago we read. Bhishma Dev, right? When Yudhishthira Maharaj goes to Bhishma, all this happened, I am the responsible person for all this death and thing in the family. And then Bhishma says, no, you have nothing to do with it. It's all because of the will of the Lord, right? So it's the same explanation that's being given in this particular case also. And of course, Srila Prabhupada explains that according to the anthropologists, there is nature's law of struggle for existence and the survival of the fittest, right? If the survival of the fittest, then we will be probably being ruled by the dinosaurs, right? We would have been, but obviously it's not the case. And Prabhupada says, but they do not know that behind the law of nature is the supreme direction of the supreme personality of Godhead. Right? And so, and again, another lesson or things that we can learn is whether the prosperity or the destruction, everything is under the Lord's control. Right? He is the one who gave these folks who were, of course they were demigods or whatever, but he gave a position, a fame, an opulence in his own family, as his own family members. But he is the one who can also take that away, right? He is the one who can provide the prosperity, but also he can also cause the destruction. And Prabhupada actually says that in the purport, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. So, I mean, we can make all kinds of plans and all kinds of strategies and things like that, but again, it's up to the will of the Lord whether any of those things will succeed or fail, right? And so from a spiritual realization standpoint, we must understand that all the outcomes, good or bad, flow from the Lord's will. And if we recognize that this aspect of it, this is a very important aspect of it. If we recognize this, that will give us the humility and surrender. Because otherwise we will think that, yeah, there is Lord's will, but I should put my effort. And I mean, which is not that you should not put your effort, but whatever the result that you may expect or you may not expect, that's up to the Lord's will, right? And also it gives us the humility, it gives us the surrender, mood of surrender, and also it encourages us to act in harmony with with the pleasure, for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Yukta kama, rather than our own ego or our own whimsical behavior, right? So, and Sridhar Swami in his commentary, he says that it is impossible to understand Lord's will by his own family members. So his own family members also didn't expect what's going to happen, because they were kind of the thought that, oh, I belong to Krishna's family, so nobody can do anything. But they were taught this lesson, and and actually Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that the Lord actually took all the gopis back to Goloka, just like that. I mean, they didn't have to go through all this, the whole episode of whatever these folks had to go through, the members of the Yadu family. I mean, both of them were family members, right? Gopis also were family members, but the Yadu family also were family members. But he gave a different treatment to each of them. And so it's up to the Lord's will. It's incomprehensible, right? How the Lord will treat, or how the Lord will, and so Jiva Goswami also explains on this verse that the members of the Yadu were never considered. We should not consider the members of the Yadu were some sort of I mean, even though here it says they were befooled, but they're not actually ordinary personalities. They were not irreligious people. Because if they were irreligious people, they wouldn't have taken birth in the family of the Lord, right? And they were, Jiva Goswami specifically explains, they were like in the 10th canto, in the early chapters, how it was explained that the demigods actually were told that you please take birth in my family. Because I'm going to be appearing in that in the Yadu family. So these were all pious people, and they took birth in Krishna's family. So we should not discount the members of the Yadu dynasty as some sort of irreligious and people. But it was basically, the explanation is, it is only because of the Lord's will this whole thing happened. And also another explanation that is, or another comment that is given by Jiva Goswami is that Yadus cooperated with Krishna's will and fought among themselves for the pleasure of Krishna. I mean, it's possible, or it could have been possible, that the Yadus would have thought, okay, we have this curse and we have to be careful, right? They could have, I mean, somebody could have stepped in and say, oh, yeah, guys, come on, knock it off. Sober up, yeah. But they haven't, because they wanted to, for the pleasure of the Lord, because they recognize that this is the will of the Lord, and they wanted to, for the pleasure of the Lord, they wanted to make it happen. And so they fought. What is it in the commentary, or in the translation? It says that The result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. I mean, how is it possible for so many people? It's a vast family, but they all fought. And that's the only explanation Jiva Goswami explains, that is because they were doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. They were willing to do whatever is needed for the pleasure of Krishna. Right? Who else did a similar kind of thing? Fought with the Lord, or fought for the pleasure of the Lord. Jaya and Vijay, yeah, maybe. And also Bhishma. Jambavan also, right? Yeah. So there are personalities who want, just for the pleasure of the Lord, they took upon that service. They considered that as a service. So, and another comment from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is that that another thing that we need to learn from this episode is that the members of the Yadu family were not at equal level to Krishna, right? Even though they were family members, I mean, they were sons and grandsons of Lord himself, and cousins and whatever, but they were not at the same level of Krishna. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that through this episode, it's being taught to the Mayavadis, because Mayavadis may conclude that these are all these members of the family were at the same level as, because they are like one, and you and everything is one, right? So they might consider the family of Yadus as same equal to Krishna, right? But to mitigate that aspect of it, to establish that even the most powerful members of the family, or most powerful living entity, can never be equal to or surpass the Lord. Therefore, the Lord arranged the destruction of his own family members. That's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's explanation. So, I guess the whole thing that we need to learn from the lessons that we can learn from this episode is that it's not just historical, it's actually symbolic. That when people lose the conception or the connection or the recognition of the supremacy of the Lord, or supremacy of the personalities, like even as I was mentioning, even our own spiritual masters or our own senior devotees, if we don't have that recognition or that respect, then what happens? There will be chaos, and also there will be pride generated in our hearts, right? And so, and then we become intoxicated with what? Pride. We become intoxicated. I mean, you can see people getting intoxicated with pride. We have somebody in the Oval Office. Right? We become intoxicated, and then we feel that we can do anything and everything. And then it only causes destruction. And also, just the verse before also, where Arjuna was lamenting, without Krishna, even his own weapons, chariots, strength, everything becomes void. Right? He couldn't even protect the queens of the Dwaraka, even though he was the most powerful warrior in the whole world. But if because he, without the Krishna being next to him, or without being Krishna's protection, he was everything becomes void, right? And also, another message is power and might are not independent. They exist only as long as the Lord wills, and when he withdraws, everything vanishes. Right? And Srila Prabhupada also he says that what is it? Basically, whether we succeed or fail, everything is according to the Lord's will. It's not our own what we can do on our own. When He withdraws, everything vanishes. And also, this shows that Srila Prabhupada here explains that an action is thus judged by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure. There is no room for personal whims. We must always be guided by the pleasure of the Lord. Such action is called yoga karmashu kaushalam, are actions performed which are linked with the Supreme Lord. That is the art of doing a thing perfectly. Right? So just to kind of conclude, so what is, how do we, where is our protection? How do we reconcile this, the Lord's will, in terms of what we have to do?
Shastravidim Mujsvidja. Yeah. By saturating our consciousness with the scriptural resources, and then we can see things in proper proportion and understand how they're, everything fits together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Prabhupada's books.
Books. And also we should recognize the impermanence, right? As we were mentioning, whatever we may have, even the knowledge, or even everything is only because of the Supreme Lord. Because sometimes we get, I know this or I know that, and we might get proud. But that's not actually, it's only because of the sanction of the Lord that whatever we have, both materially as well as spiritually. Right? And also another thing, we have to cultivate the dependence on the Lord, not on the material achievements. Right? And of course, we have to, what are the three things that we mentioned about the humility and surrender, right? That we have to develop, so that basically when we understand that everything is by Lord's will, everything is happening, we have to, what is that? Say yes to Krishna. We have to get on the program, say yes to Krishna program. So whether we expected such a result or not doesn't matter. We have to learn to say yes to Krishna program. All right, I'll stop here, and if there is any discussion or any questions. Okay.
I'll pick one out. Okay, it says bear. Okay, you take your choice. One point is labeled bear. One is labeled World War II. One is labeled Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. Another one is labeled ISKCON. Okay. And another one is Abraham Lincoln. ISKCON. Okay. Okay. No, these stories, as you go on, they become more and more and more like ISKCON. Now, you can start naming names of people. I mean, pick out irritable, powerful sannyasis, Prabhupada disciples in ISKCON coming for some program who are irritated by the impudent behavior of the kids. I mean, you start naming them. I won't name them. Yeah, they're cool devotees, but they become irritated, and when these kids are acting impudent. I mean, Krishna. This is not how Krishna wanted them to act.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why he said, no, these guys have to get out of here, and so on.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing. Is that one time Swarup Damodar Maharaj was coming back from a GBC meeting to cross the Mayapur. We were staying over in the Rajbari, Manipuri, a very old temple there, you know.
Uh-huh.
And we'd been through a typical GBC meeting, you know. I never met a single GBC secretary, and I know a lot of them, who really liked GBC meetings. I mean, I was like, you got to have really good food and everything else to go to the things. You know? But that's just your life. Anyway, something had happened, and he said, as soon as you get this title GBC, you think you've become the supreme personality of Godhead. But yeah, and so it's a natural fault of women, natural fault of sannyasi, natural fault of kshatriya, you know. But then we can, as you say, we can see all these things. And a final point in that perspective is that temple president, right, GBC, right, you begin to think that you're the controller of everything else. Yeah, you hear people saying stuff sometimes, you know, whatever, you know. But then if you're a little bit cautious, you're always remembering, but yeah, you know, Nilamadava's on the altar, and
He's the one in control.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of authority here and stuff I'm supposed to be doing, but hey, sometimes he just sticks his finger right in stuff and does it, okay, you know. So, protected by the deities.
Yeah, very, very true. Shri Shri Radha Nilamadava ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai, Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Nitai Gaurachan, Nitai Chaitanya.
I don't know if you have covered this. I've been listening online, driving here. I don't think you discussed the details of the fighting, you know, how they fought. I remember reading, probably in Mahabharata for Krishna Dharma Prabhu. The way they fought also is interesting, right? It says, we also fight based on Prabhupada said this, Krishna said that, right? So they are like I think one of the Akshauhini on the side of Duryodhana was Krishna's Narayan Sena. I think it was probably led by Kritavarma, I think.
Ah, yeah, Kritavarma.
So then they were accusing him, like, you fought on the wrong side, this and that. You know?
Yeah. I also read somewhere, yeah.
And
they
then
were basically kind of...
Yeah. And then probably somebody was attacking Akrura, saying, you know, you kept the jewel. It's all, you know, some sort of stimulating thing to start the fight. And then it comes to a point, people taking sides and stuff, and then annihilate each other.
Very true.
Prabhupada said even our problems will not be external, but they come from, we should be very careful about internal problems, which might destroy us. Yeah.
Anybody else? Otherwise, you want to do one more point of your list? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
gonna,
the
I was
bear.
gonna- I was gonna-
That's what's
I was gonna say
interesting.
bear.
I don't know what because I will be inquisitive about what was Maharaj was going to say about the bear.
So, I was having, you know, when you chant Hare Krishna, you get realizations, you know, okay, chanting good rounds. Anyway, I was really kind of thinking, wow, you know, Prabhupada came in here in the situation in, you know, the whole 1970s or 60s, and he saw, and hippies were, Krishna was sending were hippies, monkeys, you know, to help. And he had to like show them how to dress, how to sit, how to act, and, you know, to even become qualified to go to India and act some way, halfway reasonable, so Indian people would accept it. But beyond that, so they could present the culture and everything else to Western people and so on, and the philosophy and all these things, okay? So he had to take these people from the hippie culture, right? And make them competent to preach, you know, especially in India, right? So it's almost the same thing, is that now we have to take, you know, we Western people, we white guys, right? We Americans, you know, yeah? We got to go ahead and keep communicating to you Indian people how to do things in American fashion that people will like it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They have. This weekend we were at the other project. What's it called? New Navadvip Dham. It was very nice. Yeah. Very. It's how. Don't worry. There's no threat. But no, they're really just starting off like everything else. But has a lot of very interesting potential. But they had all this food there, and it was all Indian cooking, right? And over on the table, they had peanut butter and jelly. And it was like, yeah, it was like, all the Americans are happy if it's peanut, it's peanut butter and jelly. Okay. So now this is a story from Christian tradition. There are many very powerful stories, and Christian preachers and stuff, they know them. And it says at one time there was a very powerful sage, and these were guys who were running around in the Bible and doing stuff and all this kind of stuff. And he was preaching this and that, and giving people to give up fornication and drink and turn to God and being baptized in the water and stuff. You can see they have a real religious atmosphere. And when we can communicate our religious atmosphere to them, they see, you people are honest, So anyway, at some point, he was walking here and there, and a bunch of impudent, mischievous boys came out and started harassing him and throwing stuff at him, everything else like that and so on, And the Lord was upset. Then out of the forest came a 2.5 meter tall she-bear and started whacking the boys and biting them and, popping their eyes out, and they all ran away. And like this in the sage, the famous drawings from the 16th century, shows this sage sitting there and the boys being chopped up and running and screaming like that. So the same thing, don't mess with the sages. They appear to be unprotected, but they're especially protected if they're bona fide.
Yeah, they are. What is that? Brahmanya, go Brahmana Hitaya, right? So the Lord is especially protective of the cows and the Brahmanas. All right, we'll stop here. Grandiraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.